time. It would be great if all of you could let me know if my screen is visible. All right. Okay. So I think the screen is visible to all of you, and it's wonderful to have all of you here with us. So before we begin, we also love getting to know our audience better. So please feel free to introduce yourselves, tell us your name, the city you're from, what you're currently doing, and it will also help us throughout the webinar because it's great to know your challenges, your background, so we can set up the webinar in that format as well. So please go ahead and introduce yourselves. Okay, I can see a few responses. So Sumit Tripathi from Gurugram, uh, Ishika from Himachal. Welcome to the webinar, everyone. Okay, all right. Santosh from Hyderabad, you're a BCom graduate. Welcome to the session. Hrishikesh Pathak, Supply Chain Associate. Okay. Ayomide from Nigeria. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Bala from Chennai. Okay, so I can see a lot of responses from almost everywhere around the world as well. Vishal Singh from Mumbai, BSc Chemistry. Okay, Jatin from Chennai. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining in. We'll quickly start the session without wasting much time. So before we begin, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Shweta, and I will be your host for today's webinar. This is going to be a really interesting webinar because we're going to talk about how you can transition as a business analyst from any career path. And we have a wonderful speaker joining us today. So before we move on, I'm going to take you through the ground rules for today's session and for almost all the sessions that we have. In case you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A box because if you mention these in the chat box, there are chances that we might miss out on the messages. And please use the chat box effectively and keep it relevant to today's webinar. Do not share any external links and that might lead to distractions. And regarding the most asked question, certificates of participation, all you have to do is towards the end of the webinar, we are going to be sharing a form. You can fill up your full name and you'll be receiving your certificate of participation along with the recording and the slide deck within 24 to 48 hours. So now I'll take you quickly through today's agenda. So here's what we are going to be covering today. So we are going to start by understanding the role of a business analyst and why it's becoming such an important career path. Then we're going to talk about the skills that really matter, how AI is impacting the role, and how you can transition from any role into a business analyst. And of course, we're going to walk you through the learning path that we offer as a part of this program. Towards the end, we will also be covering the Q&A session where we will be taking up your questions and Bryan will be helping you to understand and clear all of your queries. Moving on, this slide is about why this webinar could probably help you. So I'm not going to get into details here because Bryan is going to explain all of this in depth. So we know that today there is a lot of data involved and not enough insight. So that is where business analyst comes into place. And there's also a lot of AI and automation in today's times, but AI can just provide automation, but it cannot kind of replace the kind of judgment that a business analyst can offer or the insights one can offer. And then finally, everything comes down to decision intelligence, and that is becoming a competitive advantage. And you can have that as a business analyst. So we're going to be covering this in the upcoming slides. I'm not going to take much time on any of this. Right. Okay. All right. So before we move on, I just wanted to quickly check with you if you guys have attended any webinars with us before, or is this your first time with Simplilearn? If it is your first time, you can let us know first time, or if not, you can let us know in the chat. We would love to see your responses. Okay, first time. First time. All right. So we have a lot of people joining us for the first time. So I'm gonna Okay, a few of them who've attended before as well. So anyone who's joining us, again, thank you for coming back and attending our sessions. And for all of you who are joining us today, welcome to Simplilearn webinars. I'll quickly tell you some highlights about Simplilearn. So we have helped over 8 million learners advance their careers across 150 countries. And we also have 50 plus global partnerships with global universities and also industry partners. And here are some highlights about why our program stands out. Most of us learners have reported a 50% salary hike, and we are also rated 4.8 out of 5 by most of our learners. We are also really happy to have an 80% graduation rate. So, this is just to give you a brief idea of what your learning experience could possibly look like with Simplilearn if you decide to take up a course with us, right? And for exciting part, for me, I love introducing the speakers of the webinar, and I'm really happy to introduce Bryan, who's going to be your guest speaker for today's session. So some of you may know him from our previous webinars. So if you know him, or he has a very strong PMP and Agile background, but here's the thing. That is also exactly what makes him the right person for today's session. So Bryan has spent years across cross-functional teams, improving business processes and coaching professionals who have transitioned into business analytics, project management, and also product roles. So he has a solid knowledge, understanding, and experience in this field, and he's the right person to guide you through these sessions. So without taking much of your time, Bryan, it would be great if you could introduce yourself. And once again, welcome to today's webinar.
Thanks so much, Swetha. It's great to be here. Great to see so many people from around the world joining us today. Thank you for the very warm introduction. And much as you said, a lot of my background is in project program management, particularly in the Agile domain, but I do a lot of work in more traditional project delivery. But all of that work relies heavily on business analysis. So I would also consider myself a bit of an expert in the business analysis domain. I have worked in that space extensively myself. In fact, for many of you that might be, thinking about this as a career path and interested in where it could possibly take you, certainly project management is another part of that career trajectory that you could consider because it's sort of a nice stepping stone into that project management space if that's an area that you enjoy. If not, as we're going to learn, there are lots of exciting opportunities to pursue in just general business analysis areas. So really excited to spend some time talking about that. And just as you highlighted before, what often makes these sessions much more impactful is questions. So if you can, if you got a question, love to hear them. We can spend some time on answering those. Do use a Q&A. It's a little hard to follow all the chat conversations at times, but the Q&A is a little bit more structured. So other than that, are you ready to get going?
Yes, that I am all set, and I hope our audience is as well. And that was a wonderful introduction, and I'm sure that everyone's waiting to hear more from you. So first, I would love to hear your thoughts on in the field of business analysis. And we all know that the industry is booming. There are more job opportunities out there. So why is this sudden rise, and what do you see? How do you see the market opportunities evolving over the years? And how is the industry changing as well?
Yeah, I think that's a really powerful question. And there's a couple drivers behind this interest that organizations have in strengthening their business analysis capabilities. The first is with the increasing use of technology that organizations have available to them, there's just so much more information. And locked in that information are answers to important questions that organizations need to understand so they can deliver more products, better products, increase customer satisfaction. So the role of business analysis, analyst role in particular, is very instrumental, helping these organizations figuring out what their next move. We're always very dynamic, very fluid. So organizations recognize that they need these skills so they can be responsive to those types of changes. And a simple example, as I'm sure everyone's familiar with, we've got AI that suddenly arrived, and if you think about it, 3 years ago we probably weren't talking much about AI. Now we can't stop talking about it, and business analysis is really going to be instrumental in both leveraging these AI tools, but helping interpret what a lot of these AI products are creating in terms of additional information. So I think this is a really exciting time to step into this career, either if you're kind of a new graduate, kind of trying to understand what paths are available to you, or if you're making some thoughts on shifting into this space. And by the way, I do a lot of work across multiple domains here, and I think this is the most exciting area for people to start giving some thought to.
Right. And those were some really great insights on business analysis as a whole. One other thing that I would love for you to cover is the market opportunities out there. We know that there are more jobs. So is this the right time for someone to join the market? You did cover that, AI has come into place. There are opportunities. So what does the market look like right now for someone who's new to this field?
Yeah, and that's a really great question too. And I suspect many of us are kind of watching the news, and there's some concerns about possible economic slowdown. One of the areas, however, that is quite immune to much of those economic adjustments is this area of business analysis. This is such a strategic part of what organizations need to have in their capacity that often it can still see a lot of tremendous growth, even if you're seeing some general economic contractions. So as you can see, there's forecasts of 1.3 million new jobs. And what I can tell you, that is way more than people are available to fill those roles. So that means there should be lots of good opportunities to find not just work, but finding work in areas that you find interesting. Yeah, so there's a big difference there, right? Oftentimes, and by the way, I've gone through a lot of recessions and things, and sometimes you take any job that's available, but it's much more fulfilling if you can pick something that you're interested in that kind of gets you excited. So if you're really interested in healthcare, financial services, or maybe manufacturing, you name it, you can find these roles, pivot, and kind of develop some focus in those areas. So I think that's really exciting. The other part of this, and not that we want to focus exclusively on remuneration and how much you make, but it is a well compensated job. So you can see that average salary there. That's pretty attractive, I suspect, for most people. And that makes that even more fulfilling, I think, because if you do something you love, that you're really interested in, you get compensated well for it. That's a pretty good recipe for happiness, basically. And you can see that increasingly this market's just going to continue to grow. So those are all good signals that you look for when you're making that thought, hey, do I want to invest in things like certifications and make this sort of a career path that I want to focus on? I think this is a golden opportunity to kind of make that move into this space.
Right. And thanks for highlighting all of these points. And like you mentioned, it's a great opportunity. And those numbers really show the how big this opportunity is. Like 1.3 million new jobs is like a big deal. And one of the best parts about being a business analyst or being in that role is that it's not just one role. There are multiple directions one can grow in depending
Right.
on what you enjoy and where you want to take your career, like you mentioned clearly. So can you take us through the different pathways one can move into once you start the business analyst role?
Yeah, exactly right. There are so many different paths you can follow along this career. So the first, of course, is the standard business analysis role. What does that basically look like? That means you can be working closely with projects oftentimes. So you're trying to understand what are the requirements that will satisfy those project outcomes, and you need to kind of write those in a way that people like developers or implementers can kind of build. So think of yourself a little bit if like, if you're building a large, complex, office building, you need a blueprint. And where does that blueprint come from? Well, it comes from an analyst who's asking questions, say, how tall does this building need to be? How much square footage? How many, HVAC and facilities do we need on that in that building? So this is a really instrumental role. It is sort of a cornerstone of what all organizations have in terms of roles in their organization. And then increasing, you see these other roles, product analyst. So what's a product analyst? This is a person that's centered on a particular product that a company is selling to its customers. So where a product analyst is going to be a little bit more focused on a particular product, and they're going to work closely with the team building the product, working with stakeholders, customers, understanding what they need so they can make sure those features are included in the product. You've got this agile business analysis role that's emerging. And what does that look like? Well, it's sort of a lighter weight form of business analysis. If you think of, capturing a requirement, oftentimes you can have a lot of details that go into that. An agile business analyst kind of focuses on getting just enough information that someone can build something, and then you iterate and make adjustments and adapt as you release those features to customers. Of course, pairing with business analysis, sort of understanding what the business is trying to do and sort of why, is data analysis. So we might need to kind of look at some of those details, the numbers, how many people are using the product, how are they using the product, what market opportunities are available. So there's sort of that deeper data analysis that pairs with that. Business intelligence, the BI analyst, that's where someone takes all that together, stitches it into something a bit more consumable for leaders, like graphs and presentations. Digital transformation analysis, so that's kind of an intriguing one. That's centered a bit more in the space of an organization saying, hey, we want to introduce more technologies into our enterprise so we can be more adaptive and responsive. And that's a big change for organizations. So oftentimes you need someone inside the organization helping to understand, okay, what changes need to be made in accounting or marketing or sales. So it's a little more internally focused so you can enable that digital transformation. And then ultimately, process consultants. So business analysts often have a lot of expertise in understanding a process. What are the inputs, the tools and techniques, the outputs that produce something that people can use? So that process, those steps, and finding ways to simplify those steps are really important to organizations. So each one of these in its own right can be a career path that you can follow for decades if that's something you want to pursue, or you can kind of make some adjustments along the way and kind of learn some different techniques and skills in each one of these domains. So yeah, but lots of great opportunities in this area.
Thank you for explaining that really well, Brian. So now that we see that there are so many pathways, there are the opportunities out there are actually huge. And the best part I feel is that you don't have to ideally choose a role on day one. But we've also seen that a lot of people start in one specific path and they naturally grow into another as they grow with their experience. So that is also something that we see. But even with all of these options out there, people do get stuck in their journey to becoming a business analyst. And also because you are a program advisor with us for this specific course, I would really like your thoughts on where people usually get stuck and how they can overcome these challenges as well.
Right. Yeah, it can probably feel a little daunting initially. And some very common questions are the ones that you see here. I don't have the skills. I don't have experience. Maybe I'm not confident in the tools that are being used, or I don't even know where to start. I want to make the move,
Right.
but I need that roadmap to kind of get me moving along the path. So first off, when it comes to skills, and this is sort of an interesting conversation. We had this before we started the session. I have a son. He's just getting his degree. So he's very excited about entering the job market. And as you might expect, he's asking some questions. Hey, what kind of work should I do? And what kind of skills do I have? Well, as I spent some time with him, just like we're talking about here, I said, well, you've got a lot of great analytical skills. The analytical skills are able to kind of pivot and shift and focus on any number of areas. So that's actually an area that you can lean into, even if you don't feel like you've got a lot of specific skills, just that critical thinking, that interest in digging into questions, unpacking things, exploring, learning more. That's an excellent starting point. You don't need anything more than that to be an effective business analyst. If you don't have that experience, well, we all start there. Hey, so sometimes we have to look into, hey, maybe you're doing something in a volunteer organization. Maybe you help facilitate something if you're a recent graduate at your college or university, whatever it might be. Those are actually really important areas of experience that you can say, hey, actually, I do have some ability to kind of demonstrate that I've done this before. Confidence and analytical tools. Well, the truth of the matter is, we're all there at different points where we just haven't been exposed to things. And I mean, again, like I said, 3 years ago, none of us knew about ChatGPT. I'm willing to wager many of us now have been using it a fair amount. We've increased our skills and our confidence. So one of the things I would encourage you, if you feel you don't have those analyticals or those skills with the tools yet, you can start developing them. If you don't have Microsoft Excel, use Google Sheets. There's lots of other products out there, and just strengthen your skills. And if you're trying to figure out like, hey, what build a budget, do a budget in Google Sheets, and help yourself, but you develop and strengthen some skills. And if you don't know where to start, well, I think this is the right session for you because we are going to dig into some of the opportunities you have to kind of get those certificates and build your career path in this area.
Thanks for answering, clearing that. And all of the things that you mentioned are the common pain points that most people have when it comes to transitioning into a field like this. Also, because there's a lot of data involved, they're really not sure how they will perform. And I think the right course, the right guidance, the right experience also comes into place. And that also brings me to a very important question and something that's focused that we're focusing on today's webinar is how one can transition into business analysis from any other field. So, is there a framework one can follow? Is there like a structure or a plan from your experience from hiring people in business analysis and also working with multiple members within your team? What are your thoughts on that? And how can one structure their portfolio or resume that way?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So if you're kind of at a point where you have been in an organization and an industry, you have some domain knowledge. You understand that industry, and that's sort of a fundamental aspect of being a good business analyst. Is you need to have some of that domain knowledge, some experience, so you can tap into that. So just think about the space that you're working in and think about, hey, actually, I've got a lot of familiarity with HR ideas, concepts, tools, techniques, things like that, and others. So that's a great starting point. So if you're at that point, you've got 5, 10 years already under your belt, then that's an awesome opportunity to kind of tap into that and use that to pivot into more of a business analysis role. That analytical mindset's important too. And we actually had this conversation yesterday. We were doing a similar session on the PMP. Some people just lean a little bit more towards analytical thinking. They're curious. They want to get more information. They want to dig into things and interpret information, look for trends and patterns. So if that's something you naturally do, well, that's a great skill set to kind of leverage going forward or to strengthen. Sometimes it's just being curious, just asking those questions like, why? Why is it that way? Let's dig into that a little bit more. Now, once you've got those sort of starting points, that's when you really begin to strengthen those functional skill sets. Things like process modeling. Now, that might sound, pretty sophisticated, but really, process modeling is just mapping out the steps you take to get something done. Okay, and you put it into a tool. There's lots of different tools out there. We're going to look at those a little bit, but it's a way in which you can take a kind of a complex set of activities and you can model them, just put them in a picture that you can clearly show to people, here are the steps you need to follow, here are the checkpoints you might have, here's the outputs that are going to be produced. Stakeholder communication. What's involved in that? Well, it's actually really having conversations. It's connecting with people, asking them, what are you doing now? What do you need in the future? Let's make sure I write that down, really understand what it is you're trying to achieve. And then documentation. And how do we want to put this information in the right place, make it accessible to others, and check in. Now, once you've got those functional BA skills, this is when we start getting into a little bit more of the professional kind of tooling areas. You're going to leverage tools like Excel, SQL, which is sort of a querying language to look at data and get information out. We've got these business intelligence tools. It's often in the form of charts, and there's lots of different charts, right? Bar charts and sort of line charts and graphs, etc. Chat GPT Copilot. So we're seeing more of these AI tools starting to emerge. And just as you explained kind of earlier, don't view AI as a replacement for any of these roles. Think of it as a complement. Okay, we've got a new tool in the toolbox that we can leverage going forward. It can't solve all the problems. We're still going to need humans to kind of look at, interpret, and make decisions. And this is where the business analysis role is going to be really impactful. And then finally, professional validation. So you can get a fair ways down your career path with just the first 4 bullets there. But if you want that icing on the top of your cake, if you really want to open up opportunities, this is where you need to start getting those certifications. And we're going to dig into three of the bigger ones shortly here. But that's the part that many organizations are going to really look to understand if you're the right fit for their organization, because you can demonstrate all those other items there, but that validation is going to demonstrate to them that you've invested in yourself and that you've got the skills necessary to help them address the challenges that they see.
Thanks, Brian. That framework actually makes the whole transition feel a lot more structured and also achievable as well. And what I love about this is that it does not matter whether someone's from HR, sales, or whatever background it may be. And that also brings me to the fact that a lot of times, like you mentioned, people underestimate the skills that they already have that probably
Hmm.
perfectly fit into the BA role. And so, can you walk us through some of the examples on how they can use these skills while preparing to be a business analyst, or how they can use these skills that they're currently using in their current profession when they transition into business analysis?
Yeah, absolutely. This is an area that I think a lot of folks are probably might feel a little sort of reluctance, like, do I have all the skills? If you are working in areas like human resources, you are already spending a fair amount of time with stakeholders, right? Who are your stakeholders? Well, the people in your organization, the people that you're providing these services to. So you're understanding what their needs are. Maybe you're looking at a new incentive compensation plan for the whole organization, and you're reaching out, kind of understanding what individuals want and making sure you're aligning what that compensation package looks like for individuals. That's stakeholder analysis. Policy interpretation. Certainly, if you work in HR, you're constantly looking at what are our policies about, time off and sick leave, things like that. Conflict resolution. This is a really important skill as a business analyst because oftentimes you're going to have sort of competing priorities that stakeholders are going to be bringing up, and you're going to help work through those with people. So you can just see in that one area alone, there's lots of opportunity to kind of say, hey, I've got a lot of really strong skills that I can transfer into the business analysis domain. Similarly, with these other areas, operations, finance, marketing, sales, IT, all of them are giving you some of the inputs that are going to help strengthen your role as a business analyst. And it can range from processes and metric analysis. You can see in IT, there's these systems understanding, kind of looking at the big picture, agile, because agile is often an important practice used in a lot of IT organizations, and that extends very well into other parts of the organization. So all of these are going to be rich skills that you can kind of tap into to help you as you make that transition as a business analyst.
That was a great explanation, and I think that provided clarity to a lot of people who are currently attending this webinar on how they can probably leverage the skills that they already have, no matter what kind of field they are in. And that is the highlight, and that also gives a lot of hope for people to transition. And that brings me to one other important part of today's webinar, and you just mentioned in the previous slide about how certifications are probably crucial for someone who's transitioning, especially while getting hired, right? So that's something, if you're new to the field, could be of an advantage to you. So could you please explain the kind of certifications one can take depending on their experience, and how can they work to get these certificates?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's probably good to pull back a little bit and just think of who are there's standards and certification bodies. And there are different ones in every one of these different disciplines. So we just had a session project management. In that domain, you have a Project Management Institute, and that's sort of a globally recognized standards and certification body for project management. Well, similarly, for business analysis, we have the IIBA, which is the International Institute of Business Analysis. So this is again a globally recognized organization. What they do is they establish standards for business analysts. So they have something called the BA-BOK, Body of Knowledge, so the Business Analysis Body of Knowledge. And that's sort of the reference guide for all things related to business analysis. And then in addition, they offer certifications, and they kind of define what goes into the certification, including the exam that will be used to demonstrate you've got these skills. So you see we've got three here that we're going to spend some time on today. The first is the ECBA, which is sort of the entry level certificate for business analysis. And this is a great starting point for anyone that is just getting into this space. Maybe you recently graduated from college, you've got a couple of years under your belt, and you're interested in kind of formally finding a career path in this area. The ECBA is a good starting point. It basically has no, requirements in the form of, experience and industry familiarity. It's just like show up with an interest, and they're gonna spend time kind of getting you this initial certification. It's a pretty lightweight one. It's very accessible, so it's a great starting point. And for those that want to start this step forward and don't have a lot of that existing business analysis or industry experience, this is a good place to begin. The next up is the CCBA, that's the Certification of Capability in Business Analysis. Now, this one is a bit more oriented around people that have been working in organizations for several years. They can draw upon somewhere between 3,700 to 3,800 hours of business analysis experience. So you've got 2 to 3 years of experience. You're feeling a bit more confident about your business analytical skills, but you want to strengthen them. This is the certificate that you would look to. Now, a little bit like the PMP certification, you're going to have to demonstrate that you have this BA experience. So you're going to have to fill out an application. Remember, we talked about the fact that maybe your role hasn't necessarily been described as a business analyst, but you've been performing a lot of those same functions and activities. So you can use that as part of your experience. So you can say, hey, I was working in HR, and I was engaging with stakeholders and understanding the requirements and documenting them. So you might be an HR analyst, but that very similar to what a business analyst would be doing. So this is a great place to begin for folks that are kind of in 2 to 3 years of experience in the space. And then finally, we have the next level, which is the CBAP. That's a Certified Business Analysis Professional. And this is a very robust certification. So at this point, you'd be expected to have about 5+ years of experience. So you're going to have to show about 7,500 hours of BA experience over the last 10 years. In addition, all these have exams that you have to complete to demonstrate, you've got these skills. And the CBAP one it's a pretty in-depth exam. It's a little heavier lift, as we might say. So it's close to 3.5 hours. So very similar to the PMP. So very robust. So one that, will require more experience. So if you're in that 5+ years range, doing a lot of business analysis work, this would be a good place for you to focus on.
Thanks, Brian, for giving us so much clarity on the certifications. I also wanted to pass on a question to you. You kind of addressed it as well while explaining it, and it's regarding CBAP. Sumitripati, I'm not sure of the name. So this person has asked if is it mandatory to have 5 years of BA experience to be able to apply for CBAP, or any other domain industry would also work. So they'd like to have your advice on that. So I think you did cover that you can have other experience, but if you could explain more on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Comes up all the time, by the way, so a good one to ask. So first off, yes, you must have 5 years of this experience. You're going to have to show that you have 5 years of experience. Now, I think part of the question might be, well, I've got 5 years of experience, but it hasn't been as a formal BA. And this is where you'd have to show that the work that you were doing was BA related. And remember, we looked at some previous examples. What would that include? Well, maybe you're working in finance and you were doing a lot of analysis on your financials. Well, that's actually a really important business analysis skill, right? You're looking at data, you're interpreting data, you're reporting out of the data. So if you're looking at lots of financial information and then you're packaging that into something you present to maybe your manager, your leaders, guess what? That is business analysis. So you just need to kind of look at your background and look at the things you're doing and tie it back to business analysis. The good news is I'm willing to wager every person that is currently on this call here who is working in an organization is doing some form of business analysis. Okay, so you just have to kind of dig into that a little bit, show that mapping. So yes, you need the 5 years, and you can use any relevant work experience to fit into that business analysis category.
Thank you for that, and I'm sure that clarified the query. And I hope you're happy with the response. Apart from that, we did talk about the kind of roles, the career pathways, and also about the certifications. But that's just one part of the puzzle. The next one is how do you present all of this to actually get shortlisted for a role in business analytics? And that's exactly what we want to talk about. So, Brian, could you walk us through the essentials that are required for someone who's transitioning from a non-BA background on how they can position their resume the right way to get their very first job?
Yeah, again, very, very good question. One that is typically asked when people are looking to make that transition. So, the first thing is to have that career objective. You're looking at your resume essentials. You want to communicate to prospective employers and hiring organizations that this is an area that you're really interested in, that you are investing in, that you are committed to kind of focusing on. So, that's sort of that starting point, that sort of, career objective paragraph you have the start of your resume. Those skills that you have built up and you have developed in your work career, represent them as business analytical skills. And we've already talked a fair amount about that. This whole idea of saying, hey, if you're, connecting with stakeholders, you're documenting, information. Well, those are forms of requirements analysis. So focus on how you're soliciting requirements. So how are you going out and getting information? How are you documenting and structuring those requirements? How you're analyzing those requirements? How are you presenting the requirement information back? And that could be in any number of forms. Hey, you're using graphs, as I said, to present information. Well, that's a classic example of business analysis skills. So just look for where you have those skills in your career. Make sure you represent them in your resume. Now, these days, a lot of resumes are being at least preliminarily reviewed by some kind of AI tooling or other automation. So looking for those keywords can be important, right? So, emphasize words like, requirements analysis, requirements, presentations and design. Just look for good words that can kind of highlight your skills. Look at the tools and techniques you're using. Now, if you're working in an organization today, you've got a couple years of experience, you have been exposed to many different tools and list them. You're using Excel, Google Sheets, you're using PowerPoint or Canvas or whatever it might be. Make sure those are represented. And when we think of techniques, well, techniques are different ways in which we're going to take these tools and leverage them so we can produce information. And by the way, a great technique is just having a meeting. So if you are in meetings, you are actually developing skills because having good meetings, effective meetings, often means that you're thinking about an agenda, you're thinking about outcomes for those. So just start listing those different techniques you use, brainstorming sessions. All of those are going to fit into good requirements analysis skill sets. Project experience, and you can certainly look to work that you're doing in an organization. If you're part of a project, that's going to be very interesting to prospective employers. If necessary, you can lean on your self-led projects, maybe things that you did yourself. Hey, I built a new extension to my house. I had to plan and organize that. Or I organize a big, volunteer event for my kids, homecoming celebration, and I manage that. Those are good demonstrations of your analytical skills and your project delivery experience. And then always flavor this with some metrics, kind of describe how your contributions help the organization maybe increase its revenue or market share or reduce costs or increase efficiency. So use that to kind of demonstrate that the work you've done has helped the organization. And then, of course, finally, and this is very important too, is showing that you've invested in yourself by getting those certifications and completed coursework. And there's lots of different ways you can kind of approach that. Of course, the IIBA certifications are sort of the gold standard, but there's other ways to get other complementary, courses completed. A lot of these are available online these days, so lots of options there. But that's a really important element of those. So you package all these together, you're going to have a pretty powerful resume that organizations are going to be very interested in reviewing and then connecting with you.
Those were some really good pointers and something everyone here can also use while transitioning and building their own resumes. So, resume is an important part, we all agree, but another part that is very crucial while you are applying for a job is also the kind of portfolio that you have. So, now you have given us some great examples of how you can come up with projects that kind of or work that kind of aligns with BA roles, right? So, based on that, could you tell us about the core elements that should be there while one is building a portfolio as a business analyst, and how they can structure it effectively to lead to a new role or even a promotion as a business analyst?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I see there's some interesting questions that are getting popular into the chat. So, let's see if I can answer a few of those as we go. But a good one, someone asked, I think Real Me said, is this useful for a sales background? Well, let's talk about that. Yes, absolutely it is. So, if you are in sales, one of the first things you should be doing is understanding what problem needs to be solved. What opportunity does your customer have that your product, your solution can satisfy? And to do that, we really kind of need to understand what's the problem statement. What is it that is either challenging your customer, why it's important to them, what pain are they feeling? Because once you understand that, then it's a lot easier to sell something to them. Well, that's classic business analysis skill sets right there. Hey, you might need to connect with different stakeholders. Hey, even in sales, right? It's not just a single person often you're working with, it could be a group of people trying to understand what their needs are. That's a form of stakeholder analysis. Who are these people? What challenges are they experiencing? What's their role in the organization? And then once you have that, you're going to capture that in form of some kind of requirement. And there's different ways in which we can do that. See terms like a BRD, a business requirement document, user stories. We might have use cases, acceptance criteria. All those are going to fit in the space. Those just different ways in which we're going to write down those requirements. And then we might need to give some thought to the process mapping that goes with it. What's the flow of work? Who does what? When do they do it? How long does it take to get that work done? Insights that might emerge from some data analysis. Again, just pulling back from our sales example, you might want to look at some data analysis. How has your solution helped other companies? If you can show that to a potential customer and say, hey, we're working with a company very similar to yours at a similar challenge, we saved them, $2 million. Well, that's going to get a lot more attention. Coming up with some solutions. Okay, there's different recommendations, and obviously a business analyst is going to be really instrumental in picking the best one. Hey, there's three choices. This is the one we'd recommend. And then doing some impact analysis. What kind of benefits did you get from that implementation? What changed because of your solution? So this is sort of the core elements of every BA portfolio. If you are in sales, if you are new, I think someone else just mentioned, hey, I've got about 4 years of experience in different domains and industries. Look at this framework and ask yourself, yeah, was I working on something and I knew what the problem was? Like that's a problem analysis that business analysts need to do. Did I work with stakeholders? How did I capture requirements? What process am I mapping to do? All those elements you can leverage to kind of compare to what you've been doing and build that out in your BA portfolio.
Thank you for covering that really well. And I'm sure you answered that query. So, the next question on the next slide that we have is also around the same thing. We did spend a lot of time talking about how one can utilize the skills that they use in their current jobs to transition as a business analyst. So, it would be great if you can explain that a little more in detail so everyone can get an understanding of what they can do in their current role to help with this
Mhm.
transition, even while working.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are currently got a job, good work, yay. how can you kind of take what you're doing today and fit it into business analysis work? Well, we've got some good examples here. Operations, if you're working in an area that is, processing invoices and, things like that, guess what? You can write that down, document it. And what becomes really interesting is many, many processes have a lot of non-value related time. What does that look like? You're waiting. You're waiting for someone to respond. You're waiting for an approval to be received. You're waiting for some information to get processed. So if you look at these processes and analyze why is it taking that much time, if we can find ways to shorten that, then you're increasing your value delivery. So no matter what work you're doing right now, you can just take a little bit of time to kind of think through the starting point, the finish point, what are the steps in between, and then look for ways to kind of reduce that duration. Similarly, you might be working with customers and you might want to understand, well, what is their customer journey? Okay, like even like in a company like Simplilearn, right? Okay, if someone comes to the website, they're interested in a course. How do they get information? They go to a webinar. Now, how do they enroll? Then how do they take the course itself? How do they get that result, that certification? Those are steps that are part of a customer journey. So understanding that, and even if you're working in an area that might be maybe a little bit more focused internally, you should lift up a little bit and ask that broader question like, who is this helping? How am I helping an end customer get something that they need? So each one of these areas, and you can kind of see the bullets underneath of them, are opportunities for you kind of dig in a bit and recognize that a lot of the work many of us do in our day-to-day jobs have business analysis skills involved.
Right. And I think these are some great points. And I think all of us who are everyone in this webinar can also leverage their current skills to help in their transition as well. So we covered almost all the aspects now. We spoke about the career paths, the certifications, how they can build their resume and portfolio as well. So one important question that we received before the webinar was that how can I choose a course, or what is the kind of path I should be choosing in case I want to transition from a non-business, non-BA background. So we do have an AI powered business analyst course, and this is Simplilearn's pathway to become one. And Bryan is also a program advisor for this specific course. Bryan, could you walk us through what are some of the benefits one may have if they choose this program to help in their transition?
Yeah, absolutely. So the program itself, these are all IIBA endorsed business analysis courses. So that's that standards and certification body. So that's really important. Anytime you're looking at a learning provider, you should make sure that they are supported by organizations like the IIBA or possibly the Project Management Institute if you're looking at project management courses. And Simplilearn works very closely with the IIBA on their course material. So first off, question number one, AI-powered business analysis. How do we use Gen AI, ChatGPT, other tools like that to get those insights and automation, smarter decisions? And one of the things that I spend a great deal of time with working with business analysis and organizations is often in how do we structure a requirement in a way that a delivery team can build and execute. And there's lots of different ways in which we can write our requirements so those teams can leverage them and build what they need to. And most people struggle a great deal with this. I'm going to be really open. Most of my time is helping people write these requirements. AI is so helpful that way. You can take, just a paragraph or two of information that you've gained talking to some stakeholders. You can put it into these Gen AI tools and it will reformat it into that sort of standard template. Incredibly helpful in terms of saving time, right? The whole intent here is how do we get decisions faster? How do we get the right kind of insights from the information we've gathered? So this is a great way to kind of leverage a tool that's a simple example of what you'd probably see there. Now, once you're there, you're going to start looking at how do I get ready to take an exam for one of these certifications? And you're going to have to decide which one's the best fit for you. A lot of it's going to be driven by experience. If you're new, you're going to be focused on the ECBA. If you're midway through your career, the CCBA. If If you've got a little bit more experience to draw upon, 5+ years, the CBAP is going to be a good path for you. So pick that direction. And then leverage some real world project examples. One of the things that Simplilearn, I think, has done that really differentiates itself from a lot of its competitors is they tap into expertise, people like myself who are working in the real world. We bring these challenges that we're seeing with customers and organizations and industries, and then we build out example projects that we can use these BA skills to help solve. So you're getting very contemporary, very practical, real world opportunities to take these techniques, apply them, and get a better understanding of what that would look like if you're working in an organization. And then finally, and this part's really important too, look for organizations that do have very credible mentors and leaders and course facilitators because you're going to be interacting a lot with these folks. So you want to hear from people that have been doing it, that have practical experiences, that can help you understand the best time and the best way to apply these techniques. So these are all really important when you're considering what is a good course program for me to consider.
Right. So those were some great highlights. Thanks for pointing that out. And apart from that, one thing everyone focuses on mainly is the skills and the tools that are covered as a part of the program. So
Hmm.
it would be great if you could just brief them about the kind of skills and the tools that they will be having as a part of the once they complete the program.
Yeah, absolutely. We've kind of touched on a lot of these already, but you can see the rather long list of bullets there. You are going to develop and really sharpen many, many skills. Business analysis, data elicitation, how to get data, how do I analyze data, how do I visualize this data back to people so they can make decisions. A lot of times we're pulling data out of different systems, matching together. We're going to find that the data is not always clean, right? Maybe someone typed in a null value for an address, because it didn't have it. So now you got to figure out what do I do with that address if we're going to do some data analysis on it. You might have to prepare data. Okay, so you might have to match data to other pieces of data. So there's a lot of data analysis that can go into this space. Life cycle management, this is really just talking about how do I manage the life cycle of identifying a requirement, documenting a requirement, analyzing a requirement, designing a solution. So that whole life cycle is important. Oftentimes, too, we haven't talked a lot about this, but business analysis and testing pair very well together, right? We want to understand what the requirement is, but then we want to validate that that was the requirement that was built. So many times you might find you become a really strong business analyst and you shift into the QA domain because that's actually a really good skill set for anyone in that QA space. There's all sorts of, strategy, solution analysis that will go into this. And what makes this role often quite exciting is you're interacting and working with leaders in the organization. So you get a chance to kind of understand what their priorities are, what opportunities they see, and that can be really interesting. You see lots of tooling there, Excel, and we've got macros and VBA, Visual Basic tools. We got pivot tables, dashboards. We'll do some data modeling, calculations, look at model performance to see how fast things work with some simulations. Documentation, collaboration is instrumental. We're going to be collaborating with others. And then you can see we're going to take look at existing processes, mine them, see what information exists in our processes. Got some of these agile ideas starting to emerge. How do we think about delivering things rapidly in short iterations, incrementally? Design thinking, that's just thinking about things from the end user perspective. What's it like to use our product? Is it simple and easy to use? Querying data. All of that's going to be supported by these icons you see there. You are going to get exposed to a lot of great tools, some of which you might already have some exposure to, Microsoft Excel perhaps, or ChatGPT. But Jira, Tableau, those are going to be really important for analyzing information, managing your work. You see Lucid. Lucid's a great tool for mapping out processes. Confluence, a document management tool. So many of these tools you're going to stitch together to really complement your business analysis skills.
Thanks for wonderfully explaining all the skills and tools that are covered as a part of this program. And I think one of the main highlights is also that it's an AI powered business analyst course. So
Hmm.
the AI advantage is something that clearly stands out for this. I'll quickly take you all through the case studies and projects. So I'm not going to get into details in the interest of time. So these are some of the case studies and projects that you guys will be working on. So you will build a sales performance dashboard, you'll map employee performance metrics, data modeling and visualization with Power BI. We discussed about the tool. Bryan just explained that it will be covered as a part of the program. Documenting requirements for business process automation, and you will also be process mapping and working on automation strategy as well. So these are very strong projects that you can add to your portfolio and that can be of a great advantage when you are applying for that role. And this shows that you have knowledge, not just the theory, but you have implemented that in real life as well. And I think that's where this program stands out. Bryan, from your experience, how important is it to have this kind of real world experience and working on real life projects?
Yeah, I think one of the things that really stands out with the program that Simplilearn offers is it takes the techniques and those tools that you need to understand and you need to develop some skills with and applies them to a real world environment. And each one of these areas here, these different case studies and projects, are very, very relevant to organizations. All organizations are constantly trying to understand, like, what I need a sales performance dashboard to understand, am I doing what I want and am I getting the opportunities delivered that I need to? How am I managing employee performance metrics? Are we getting the most from our people? Are there things that are preventing them to be effective that I need to understand? How do I model data and visualize it using tools like Power BI? You could be working a lot of big organizations, lots of data. You need to be able to present that in a way that people make informed decisions. Documenting requirements, really important when organizations are trying to think about how do we automate our processes. Remember, we talked about digital transformation, one of those roles, analyst roles. Well, that's what digital transformation analysts spend a lot of time on. How do I automate our processes? And to do that, I need to understand what the processes are. And that fits right into process mapping and automation strategies. These are big enablers to organizations to drive throughput, in which kind of they can do the old more with less. So you can see how these case studies tap into the skills that business analysts need to have and gives you an opportunity to kind of showcase your skills in real world, very compelling projects that organizations would be interested in.
Thanks for explaining that, Bryan. I hope all of you have a good understanding of what you might, the kind of projects that you will be completing as a part of this program and how these can also benefit you. So, us telling you about the course and the course highlights and the projects are one thing, but on the other, we also have an alumni story. So, you can take a look at it. Please let me know if the audio is, you can hear.
And I don't know if everyone else is having, are you able to hear this? I'm not sure.
Are
I
you
can't.
able to hear? Okay, so in case you guys are not able to hear it, basically this is Mohit, and he actually got 100% salary hike. He transitioned from a sales executive to a business analyst, and that led to the salary hike. So he did that after completing his this course with us, and this is his testimonial. So we can share this as a part. So along with the slide deck, you will be receiving this. So you can just take a look at it. So now in the interest of time, I'll just take you through the fee structure for this course. So the course fee is 54,000 for Indian learners, and you have installment option. So you can pay as low as 4,500 per month. And for global learners, it's $1,449. And even you have options to pay this in installments. If you have any questions regarding this, our advisors will reach out to you, and I'll launch a poll as well. If you click on a yes, in case you have any queries, you're interested in the course, our team will reach out to you and help you enroll for the course as well. Another highlight about this is that the next batch is starting in 2 days, 22nd of November. That is the earliest cohort we have. And it's a 20-week program. So it's also a new year's coming up. If you are planning to change your career, this is also the right time to transition. So I'll launch the poll and you can go ahead and give your responses over there. We would also like to highlight the certification that you will be receiving as a part of the program. So the first one is from Simplilearn, and you will be an AI powered business analyst, and the second one is a Microsoft certification. So you will be receiving both of these as a part of the program. And one thing about one thing is completing the course, the other is the kind of career support that you receive, and that's also a major point when you consider a partner like Simplilearn. So one of the advantages of joining us is that you get group mentoring and networking opportunities. Bryan already spoke about the kind of mentors that we provide at Simplilearn, so I'm not going to add on to that. Apart from that, we also will help you with interview prep and assessment. So you will have mock interviews, and one highlight is that you will be receiving feedbacks from your mentors on all of these. So you will be ready to give your first interview and clear the first interview as well. Apart from that, we also provide AI powered profile optimization. So basically, LinkedIn optimization, optimizing your resume by adding the necessary and relevant skills, and also adding to your portfolio is something that we provide as a part of this course. You also receive mock interviews and mentoring. I already covered that, and you will also receive membership for IIM Jobs Pro. So these are some of the advantages that you get by being a part of this program. And now I'm going to quickly launch a poll for your, if you are interested, you can just click on a yes, and our team will reach out to you in 24 hours mostly. If you have any queries also, you can go ahead and click on a yes, because we will not be able to address all of your queries one-on-one during this webinar. So it will be great if you guys can share your response over here. Right, so I can see that a lot of you are responding. All right, so I think in the meantime, we will also check for the questions. Right. Okay. And I see that a few people are asking about the certificates and attendance form. Once this poll is over, I will be launching the certificate poll as well. So I'll just wait for 30 more seconds and then we will close this poll. And if you guys have any questions, please go ahead and post in the Q&A session, because we will miss out on the questions that you post on the chat box. Okay, so okay, if there are questions about the certificate, so yes, we will be sharing that. Okay, so if you guys have any other questions for Bryan, you can ask us in the chat box and we will take that up right now. Okay, all right. I do not see many questions here.
I think we caught a lot of them as we were doing the
Yeah, yeah, as
presentation. So
yes,
really
as we were taking
appreciate.
them through the
Hmm.
presentation. All right. Okay, so Sumitri, but can you please share your question in the Q&A box? I'm not really sure. We did address the first part. Okay, the second part. Okay. Okay, so Bryan, I think it's a follow-up question from the same person who asked about the 5 years of experience. So this person's asking, what if the audit happens and we could not provide relevant experience of our previous bosses, and also writing applications of CBAP? I have been in a dilemma for the last many years because the CBAP examination is very costly, like PMP.
Hmm. Yes. So we're kind of digging into the application process a little bit here, but a few things to give some thought to. The first is you're exactly right. When you submit your application, it will be reviewed. Some, not all, will be audited. And when it happens, it means they are going to ask you to reach out to the people that you worked with and validate that the things you said in your application are accurate. So the best way to approach that, obviously, be honest and transparent about what you're doing. But secondly, reach out to the people that you've done this work with and say, hey, this is what I'm going to submit. Are you comfortable validating this if that question comes up? And that can sometimes be challenging if you've worked with people many years ago and you're trying to remember email addresses and contact information. And the way I might encourage you to think about this is it's an opportunity to reconnect with some of the people that you've had working relationships with in the past, broaden that network of contacts you have. So it's actually, I think, a good opportunity to say, hey, I'm progressing my career here. Love to get your support for that. They might find that very interesting and say, oh, I had no idea you're going down that path. Guess what? We have a role that we're looking for that you might be a good fit for. So view it as a kind of a positive thing, but do take the time to do that. Just so you're aware, I have been audited. I have lots of certifications. This has happened, even to me. And so it is good to be prepared and just aware of. And it's just something you just have to, prepare a little and think about how you're going to manage.
I think that cleared the doubt. So thank you for saying that, Bryan. And I'm also going to quickly end this poll. In case you guys have any more queries regarding the course, you can also check this AI powered business analyst course on our website, and you can go ahead and click on schedule a call, and our team will reach out to you for that. And now we can quickly move on to the certificate. I am launching the poll for certificates as well. Please go ahead and fill up your full names. You will be receiving your certificates within 48 hours. There are a few questions regarding the certificates. So you do receive on the course completion, you receive a Simplilearn certificate and also a Microsoft Azure certificate. And if you have any specific questions regarding the course, our advisors, program advisors, our counselors will reach out to you if you have filled up the answered the poll question. And because we will not be able to address all of your questions today, and we will be covering that in the upcoming webinars, or you can reach out to our team and they will be able to assist you with that as well. So as you guys are filling up the certificate of participation poll, I'm gonna quickly thank Bryan for being such a wonderful speaker for this webinar. Those were some really great insights, great perspective, and amazing tips on how one can transition. So this has been a wonderful session, got a lot of value. So thank you for being a part of it, and I really enjoyed hosting this webinar along with you.
Well, thanks so much, Swetha. Yes, it's been great being part of this. Thanks everyone for being so engaged and asking some great questions here. If we didn't get to everyone's questions, sorry, we're just a little time constrained here, but you're more than welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and happy to spend some time on any questions you might have after the session's done. Other than that, just really encourage everyone to kind of continue to kind of move forward with making some career decisions for yourself. I think this is a great path to take forward. I really think this is a strong opportunity. So if you're here thinking about it, my guidance would be, yep, take those next steps, lock in. If it makes you feel comfortable. I work with lots of organizations. I have to invest in myself too. In fact, I'm more in the project management domain. There's a new AI-driven project management certification that just came out from the PMI. I'm going to invest in that myself. So even people that have a lot of experience and teach courses and write books and things like that, we've got to invest in our own career too. So we're all on the same kind of path together. I'd really encourage you to kind of keep moving down that path. So thank you again, Swetha. Looking forward to our next session.
Yes, thank you so much for being a part of the webinar. And those were some really great insights. Thank you. And I look forward to hosting you in the upcoming months as well. And I would also like to take this time I'm going to end the poll first. In case you guys did not fill up the form, you can mail us at webinars@simplylearn.net, and we will send in the slide deck and the certificate as well. So finally, thank you all for being a part of this webinar and for being a wonderful audience. You guys were really engaged. You gave us a lot of responses. So thank you for staying till the end of the webinar. And I look forward to having you all in the upcoming webinars as well. So wish you all a wonderful day ahead. Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.